Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mike. You guys are rocking with me on Mike's Intellectual Corner. On today's episode, we are starting a new, which one is called, the channel is called Knowledgia, and this one's called Why Did Sparta Collapse? Without further ado, just like always, we're just going to jump right into it. Let's go.
Speaking about ancient Greece, we may think about ancient conflicts, legends, true warriors, philosophers, or architecture so incredible that it's embraced even today in different forms. Also, we may think about classic Athens or Sparta. The ancient Greek world was a place where extraordinary civilizations emerged, from the Greek Dark Ages of the 12th to 9th century BC to the end of what we know as antiquity. Don't think about ancient or classic Greece as a single country. No such unified ancient Greek state with Athens or Sparta as its capital ever existed, but a multitude of cities, each with its own rule and form of government, each one.
Yeah, so I'm pretty, obviously those were city-states, not just cities, because as he said, each city had its own form of government and everything like that, which would make it a city-state, not just a city. And also, I'm pretty sure for Sparta and Athens would rather be subjugated to Persia than being ancient Sparta and ancient Athens anyway would rather be subjugated to Persia than being a singular kingdom together, because as we can see from the Peloponnesian War, that they don't like each other at all. But
Developed in its own way. There were alliances, pacts, or trades between them, but also hostilities. And looking at the bigger picture, there was a lot of rivalry, especially between two of them. Classical Greece was a period of about 2 centuries in Greek culture, 5th and 4th centuries BC to be more exact. This century is essentially studied from the Athenian outlook because Athens has left us more narratives, plays, and other written works than the other ancient Greek states. This classical period saw a lot of conflict that will remain in history forever. The subjugation of some Greek city-states and the biggest threat of the ancient Greek civilization until that time was on the horizon. The mighty Persian Empire expanded hugely in these decades, conquering vast territories in the east and west, conquering lands from Bactria to the Arabic Sea, then Lydia, Babylon, Phoenicia, and Egypt. The Persians were the masters of war and invasion. The mainland Greece was threatened by this new possible invader, but also was a reason for many city-states to ally against the common enemy. We can start to look at the whole Greek world as one at the beginning of the Ionian Revolt of 500 BC. This event provoked the Persian invasion of 492 BC. The Persians were defeated in 490 BC. A second Persian attempt was in 481 to 470.
yeah, it's pretty crazy how Persia was able to conquer so much, but you know what I'm saying, they weren't able to do what's like, say, the Ottomans and the Romans were able to do and conquer this little, this little essential peninsula of city-states. And you know what I'm saying, it's kind of crazy how I guess how forward they were in their military stuff, and at that time to be able to pull that off and stuff. So.
490 BC. A second Persian attempt was in 481 to 479 BC, which failed as well. Even if the Persians marched through the mainland Greece at an important point, they were defeated. The ancient and popular battles of Thermopylae and Artemisium changed the course of history for the ancient Greeks. The Persian attempts to conquer Greece lasted for more than 20 years. Although the Persian invader was more powerful, due to the military innovation, strategy, and courage of the Greeks, the invasion was repealed. Near the pass of Thermopylae, the Spartan king Leonidas led his 300 men, plus a help from other Greeks, and resisted for 3 days against thousands of Persians. The story is not just about one mighty moment of history, but the Spartan way of life was shown in this legendary battle.
If you guys love this period in time, the classical ancient Greece, and you guys want to play through like the Battle of Thermopylae, or a portion of it anyway, or you guys want to play through the Peloponnesian War, definitely recommend getting Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because you can play through all that, and it's what I'm saying, I don't know, it's really different. It's pretty much it's in like the year 500 and some BC. It's pretty cool, but yeah.
legendary battle. The Spartans focused their loyalty to the state and military service. At age of 7, Spartan boys started their education and military training, and it is said that they lived in barracks and they trained consistently even in times of peace. The Delian League then formed, under Athenian hegemony and as Athens' instrument. Athenian success brought a direct conflict with Sparta. The Peloponnesian War happened in 431 BC. After a brief peace, the war resumed to Sparta's advantage. Athens was defeated in 404 BC, and Sparta became the biggest force of the Greek world. The end of the Peloponnesian War left Sparta the master of Greece, but the narrow outlook of the Spartan warrior elite did not suit them to this role. In 395 BC, the Spartan rulers removed Lysander from office, and Sparta lost their naval supremacy. Athens, Argos, Thebes, and Corinth, the latter two former Spartan allies, challenged Sparta's dominance in the Corinthian War, which ended inconclusively in 387 BC. The Corinthian War revealed a significant dynamic that was occurring in Greece. While Athens and Sparta fought each other to exhaustion, Thebes was rising to a position of dominance among the various Greek city-states. That same year, Sparta concluded the Treaty of Antelcetis.
Yeah, it's crazy how Sparta wasn't able to find another city-state to be able to help them throughout these different battles and stuff like that. They always had to rely on their own men, because if I'm not mistaken, Athens had, I think, over 2 times the amount of men that they had in their city. I think like around 600,000, where Sparta only had like 50,000. So definitely crazy.
The Treaty of Antelcetis with Persia. The agreement turned over the Greek cities of Ionia and Cyprus, reversing 100 years of Greek victories against Persia. Sparta then tried to further weaken the power of Thebes, which led to a war in Thebes allied with its old enemy, Athens. In 378 BC, the reaction to Spartan control over Thebes was broken by a popular uprising within Thebes. Before going further on than that, we have to understand why Sparta was so good at war. Since its beginning, Sparta was ruled by a diarchy. This meant that Sparta had 2 kings ruling concurrently throughout its entire history.
Yeah, and not a lot of people know too. During the Battle of 300, there was 2 kings on that as well. I just don't know why they didn't show it in the movie. I'm sure, for dramatics and stuff like that. But there were 2 kings serving at that time. I'm pretty sure the other king next to Leonidas was, I think his name was like Leticus or Leoticus or something like that. It's kind of a hard name, but yeah, he was the king at that time, and it's pretty interesting to see like what. I wish they would have included him in the movie, because it would have been interesting to see like what his thoughts on it were, and what his role in it was, and what the people thought of him. Obviously, he had to stay back, because they still need a king, and obviously that's why they were still okay after Leonidas died, because they still had a king. So, but yeah.
This meant that Sparta had 2 kings ruling concurrently throughout its entire history. The 2 kingships were both hereditary, vested in the Aegeid dynasty and the Eurypontid dynasty. There is a legend that says the hereditary lines of these 2 dynasties emerged from Eurynthenes and Procles, twin descendants of Hercules. It's said that they have conquered Sparta 2 generations after the Trojan War. Life as a Spartan similar was one of privilege, but not of ease. At birth, a young Spartan male was brought before a board of elders and examined for physical deformities. If he was not up to standard, he was carried to a nearby gorge where he was left to die of exposure.
And of course, to us, that sounds like super crazy living in, the 21st century and the times that we're living in. But, it's also kind of equally crazy to try to put our 21st century thought process on their thought process when they lived over like 2,500 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just 2 different things. Like these guys are just trying to survive in a world, and we've already mastered it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just one of those things.
To a nearby gorge where he was left to die of exposure. At age 7, a boy who had survived his initial review was taken from his mother to begin his formal education. Disobeying an order or demonstrating any hint of fear during battle were further grounds for expulsion. There were several inferior castes of persons who had fallen, of whose ancestors had fallen, from the ranks of the elite similars. Each was given a derogatory name, such as inferiors or tremblers. After the year of 404 BC, when Athens was defeated, Sparta made and broke alliances as they wished, and this created consequences. Due to having good relations, some Spartans engaged in foolish, greedy, or opportunistic military operations, and this sometimes happened in contravention of treaty obligations and with traditional Greek morals. They found that their government and officials were willing to turn a blind eye on their bad habits. The popularity of Sparta was going down. The other Greeks, whether traditional allies or enemies of Sparta, became increasingly unhappy with Spartan hegemony, and in time, a new anti-Spartan alliance was organized. The Spartans tried to maintain their position as rulers of the Greek world, with authority being expressed with their military might. And their military was strong. Spartan hoplites were still without equal. But in time, more and more casualties appeared, and Sparta could not afford many more of these.
Yeah, because like I said, at the time, Athens was dealing with like, I think 600,000 civilians in their city, and Spartans only has 50,000. So, and obviously a good number of that population are old or women, children, you know what I'm saying? So they just don't have that type of numbers to keep going, even though they keep going. And the fact that now we have Thebes in it too, so they don't have the manpower to keep up. And it's crazy that they didn't get an ally with them along with it. They just kept trying to do it by themselves, and yeah.
Appeared, and Sparta could not afford many more of these costly victories. Every battlefield casualty meant one less warrior to stand against Sparta's enemies. Moreover, it was no longer clear that Sparta's absolute domination of traditional hoplite tactics would last forever. In 390, the Spartans were stunned at the defeat of an isolated Spartan regiment and a loss of some 250 men. Meanwhile, Sparta's enemies were learning more and more about Sparta's military tactics. Moving forward on from what happened, in 378 BC, the reaction to Spartan control over Thebes was broken by a popular uprising within Thebes. The Theban army was reorganized and began to free the towns from their Spartan garrisons. Theban general Peloponnesian won a great victory over a much larger Spartan force in 375 BC. Theban authority grows so spectacularly in such a short time that Athens came to mistrust the...
Yeah, see, Sparta should have worked on the fact that, hey, Athens, Thebes is like right next to you guys, and they're going pretty strong. You know, maybe we should work together to get rid of them or something, instead of trying to be, you know, the big bully around. And,
to mistrust the growing Theban power. Athens began to consolidate its position again through the formation of a second Athenian League. In 371, the Theban army, led by Epaminondas, inflicted a bloody defeat on Spartan forces at the Battle of Leuctra. Sparta lost a large part of its army and 400 of its 2,000 citizen troops. Epaminondas' victory ended a long history of Spartan military prestige and dominance over Greece, and the period of Spartan hegemony was over. The decisive defeat of the Spartan hoplite army by the armed forces of Thebes at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC ended an epoch in Greek military history and permanently altered the Greek balance of power. One by one, the old certainties of the golden age of the 5th century has been challenged.
Yeah, I'm sure after all these defeats and stuff, obviously the way that the other city-states looked at them started to diminish and stuff like that, and, you know, them thinking, you know, maybe these guys really aren't that tough, and, you know, their time in the sun is over. Their tactics are old and decrepit, and we can take them over, essentially.
Of the golden age of the 5th century has been challenged and overthrown, but the image of Spartan military invincibility had, until this moment, remained a secure bastion. Once, the very sight and sound of an advancing line of Spartan soldiers had been enough to break the nerves of opponents, even before the shock of arms.
I bet, because they were so disciplined and quiet and stuff. It's the same thing with the Romans. They posed such an imposing threat on their enemy because of how quiet and disciplined they were. All you could literally hear was one person screaming out orders, or a bugle or whatever, and just hear just marching and the metal clanking, and that's it. Like, that's very it's very intimidating as a barbarian soldier, or even one of these other soldiers, what I'm saying, that's just going out there and you're just screaming because you're nervous. Really, you're not really, it's just one of those things.
Even before the shock of arms. When we look more closely at the history of Sparta as a military society, the collapse of Leuctra starts to make sense. By the time they met the Thebans there, Sparta had long been in serious trouble. It was only a matter of time before someone found a way to exploit Sparta's profound inner weakness. The story of Sparta's decline and fall is an objective lesson in the intimate relationship between social organization and military power. Sparta proved to be a devious, self-deluded, and hopelessly confused society at the very moment of its most notable success. The epitome of the Greek hoplite republic, Sparta was, in the end, unable to field enough hoplite warriors to stave off military disaster. Even though Sparta never fully recovered from its losses, it was able to continue as a regional power over 2 centuries. They even became allies with the Romans, and under Roman rule, this was a free city and a tourist attraction for the Roman elite. But in the end of 396 AD, it was sacked by the Visigoths.
Well, in either case, though, that's still really impressive. That's the fact that the Romans granted Sparta freedom, but Athens and Thebes had to be subjugated. You know what I'm saying? That just speaks volumes. I'm sure, the old ancient dudes, you know what I'm saying, who were set in their ways were just loving that. So,
was sacked by the Visigoths. We want to thank you so much.
Alright guys, we'll go ahead and end it right there. So yeah, the collapse of Sparta, definitely a story that doesn't get told as much, because obviously we focus on their build-up and their glory and stuff like that. But definitely an interesting story though. So thank you guys again for joining me on another episode of Mike's Intellectual Corner. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys when I see you. Out. Peace.